Today we're going to be looking at cutting using different types of blades and how well they cut our porcelain tile or ceramic tile. So when you start, you don't let your hand stop. You go right through and you'd be surprised how straight you're going to end up cutting. So we're going to do two cuts, and we'll see which one's better. Some rigid lines, and then there's some additional holes, probably to dissipate the heat. What's going on, guys? In today's video we're going to take a look at two grinder blades that you can cut porcelain tiles with. Now we're going to review them to see which one is better. One is a little coarser, and I've used it probably for the last 3 years, even to do this entire built-in unit here. So this is all porcelain tile cut. So I did this manually by hand. I found this beautiful edging here and I placed it all around, and it actually enclosed the entire front face of this built-in TV and fireplace quite beautifully. I found that at Home Depot in the ceiling area where you have the drop ceiling, and we painted it white to sort of match the rest of the tile. Now, but if you look at the very top there, that I need to do a little cut there, and I need to do cuts right along there, and then finally right in there. And because I don't want to put a crown molding up top, I wanted to see what kind of blade would be able to cut a little sliver like this in the tile. So I was talking to a really good friend of mine. He owns a construction company. I'm gonna leave his, I guess, information in the description. He lent me a little hand grinder with a blade, and he said that this cuts like butter. So we're gonna test that versus the one that I have. If we can't pull this off, I may need to find access to a table wet saw. But the process of using those saws is super slow because you have to be very careful and perfectly straight so it doesn't actually bust and crack the tile. That's why, you know, most contractors use the manual method, or they use the little scoring machine. We have two samples. One we're going to try and cut with my grinder, the one that did everything here, and the bricks downstairs, and then the other one's going to be cut with Luis's. That's it. One of the blades has holes and skewed lines on the edge, and we're using a Bosch 4.5-inch grinder, and the other one is a Ryobi, and it's also using a 4.5-inch grinder. Now this one was sold with the Ryobi machine, whereas this is a custom blade purchased at a specialty tile store, but I will leave links in the description so you guys can grab it as well. We're gonna do a test to see which one is gonna cut the tile smoother. Before we get to the test, make sure you guys click that like button. It definitely helps the algorithm and the channel. So here is our test template. We drew straight lines, and we're gonna see which one performs better. We're gonna do Bosch first. Bosch. We're gonna do Ryobi. Bosch, Ryobi. So we're gonna do two cuts, and we'll see which one's better. It's just a little sliver. It's not a thorough cut. You can see there's still just a little ridges here. Let's try the first line of Ryobi. Very similar to the above in terms of the amount of ridges. Actually, I even want to say that Bosch has more. So now let's do a straight cut right through. So we're gonna have to go through a couple times. So let's switch back to our Bosch. We obviously want to clean this up, but the ridges didn't really expand. It's still the same exact amount that was the first time. So now let's do a Ryobi cut. Several things happened. As you can see, it cracked the tile right through, and not only that, and there's also an additional divots in here, right, as you're coming in, and it didn't really do a straight cut. So let's do one more test just to make sure. Again, we're going to do it with the Bosch. Okay, so this one did a little worse job than the first one. It got like a little chip on the bottom tile, but the top seems to be nice. Let's finish it right off. If you look at the bottom, it's pretty reasonable, and it didn't crack under pressure. All right, so let's do the final test with the Ryobi. Okay, you can see here that again, a little more chips than the Bosch blade. So let's cut this right through. You can see there's a lot more chips here, and this time I managed to cut through, probably because I was going a little slower, but that's not necessarily a good thing, especially if you do this for a living. So from this test here, I can definitely see that Bosch is probably a better way to go. Yeah, so this is our test. The winning blade is definitely the one from Bosch. Now there's also a possibility that this blade is just so worn out and old, and that's why it's doing it. But I think I'm gonna give this one a try, just because it did do a little better of a job cutting, and it went through much faster. So now let's take our actual piece and let's cut it. Alright, so I am actually very impressed with the cut edge. It's actually extremely good. If you were to put some caulking on here, some silicone, or even some grout, I could definitely even see that this could be an edge. You could definitely lose this to be a real edge. Now let's take a look at our cut piece. So our cut piece definitely has some ridges, but as you can see, this is a smooth cut here. And overall, I think I'm pretty happy with this one. So we're gonna go and give Bosch and this blade a thumbs up versus the Ryobi blade. So when you're cutting the tile by hand, you want to make sure you cut with confidence. So when you start, you don't let your hand stop. You go right through, and you'd be surprised how straight you're gonna end up cutting. You want to go over the same cut, basically 4 or 5 times until this chips, and then you clean up the edges. You want to make sure you have a flat surface underneath, relatively flat. If you want this to break without cutting it so many times, you can have a little angle like this, and then as you're cutting, it's going to basically break under the pressure there. But I'm going to put it on a flat surface, relatively flat surface, and I'm going to go over the tile several times, probably 4 to 5, and because I want a nice clean edge. So I'm noticing that the blade has cut through some of the areas in the tile. So now I'm gonna try and go over so that way I get an even crack. And there we go. Pretty good. All right, let's put the next one. The Bosch and its blade came out on type. Now this is not a Bosch blade. Again, I'm gonna provide you a link in the description to where you can actually purchase a blade similar to this. So I highly recommend you get yourself one. This will save you hundreds and hundreds of dollars if you wanna do your do-it-yourself projects. This is the cut. I'm gonna go install this on the ceiling. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments. And as always, make sure you click that like. It definitely helps the algorithm. And for more videos like this and tips on renovations, home decor ideas, click that notification bell. I'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye.